Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast, the show committed to helping you dismantle the destructive mindset programs keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance so you can get out of your own way and play to your potential. My name is Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach with 16 years of experience helping thousands of individuals like you get unstuck. This podcast features a collection of solo episodes, conversations with scratch and plus handicap golfers, and master classes with top experts in the performance psychology space. The one goal? To help you make playing to your potential a habit. Underneath every single surface level sabotaging behavior, surface level challenge, underneath even every deep-rooted limiting belief, misconstrued pattern of thinking, is one common theme: fear. No matter the surface level challenges that my clients present as to why they are working with me, underneath it all is fear. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of so many different things. And underneath whatever challenge, obstacle, form of invisible gravitational-like resistance you are experiencing as you work toward achieving your primary goal is also fear. Fear is at the core of what holds you and myself back from achieving our potential, from living our dream life. And in today's episode, we're going to dissect fear. And we're going to get incredibly granular. So I'm going to plant the seed now, get something to write with, take some notes, and really tune in, because throughout this conversation, there will be many subtle differences and significant intentionality behind the words that I use to discuss fear. And you've heard me say it before, or you've seen me write it in an edition of the More Pars Than Bogeys newsletter. There is an inherent magic in the words we use to speak to and about ourselves. I mean, that's literally why the construction of letters to form words is referred to as spelling. They carry such a strong emotional energy. It's like they cast a spell over what it is we think, feel, and believe we are worthy, deserving, and capable of achieving. The quote I want you to write down to kick this off is from William Faulkner. Great American writer, philosopher. To be candid, don't know much more about him, but I know that I love this quote. Be scared. You can't help that. But don't be afraid. Be scared. You can't help that. But don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. And this is an essential distinction. Fear is a state of being. It drags you down. It weakens you. It even paralyzes you. It's a liability, and it holds you back. Fear tends to warp your thinking, causing you to exaggerate the potential negative consequences of taking action. Fear helps lead to understating the potential positive results of taking said action. And when you're stuck in this state of being, this paralysis, this fear, you're blind to the cost of inaction. And to allow fear to rule over you and assume control, to step into the driver's seat of your decision-making and action-taking, well, that's a disgrace. Fear is a choice. It does not serve you. A scare or feeling scared, however, is a temporary rush of feelings. And this temporary rush of feelings, this momentary experience, not only can it be forgiven, it can help you. Feeling scared, again, temporary, not an actual state of being. Feeling scared makes you alert. It wakes you up. It informs you of danger. It's okay to be scared. It's not okay to let being scared evolve into a place of stuckness rooted in fear that prevents you from doing what you know needs to be done. It's normal to feel scared when you're asking someone out on a date that you've never met or you've just met. Maybe you're making your move at the local Starbucks, maybe even at the driving range. When you're pitching your business idea, you're looking for investors, you're looking for funding, when you're asking for a raise, when you're raising your prices as a business owner or entrepreneur, or when you've entered into a tournament, you're playing member in the first flight. All of these experiences are going to produce a temporary scared sensation. And this is okay to experience. Again, it can sharpen your mind, your alertness, your focus. Yet if you choose to remain stuck in this state and allow it to transform into a state of being, which is fear, it's a disgrace. It's counterproductive to helping you attain your goal. Now, you may be wondering, where did I begin to get these two distinctions? Such a subtle yet significant difference in word choice. Scared versus fearful. Scared versus afraid. Notice I'm using fearful and afraid in the same context in this particular situation. Well, it turns out that even the Stoics, who were known as masters of their emotions, admitted that they too experienced fear. They even had a word for it, and I'm going to butcher it, but that word was fantasei. And again, I have no idea if I'm spelling or pronouncing that correctly, but fantasei. And the Stoics experienced this. Even the most Zen-like people of our existence experienced fear. And they did not fault anyone for having an emotional reaction. They only concerned themselves with what you did after the shine of that feeling wore off. Now let's take a step back. Fear is a strong, visceral, full-body emotional experience that is ingrained, hardwired, programmed into our DNA as human beings. It is the reason that you and myself are still here today, thousands of years later. It is at the core of why our species has survived. We all experience that shine, that sensation of fear or scaredness. Yet, if we choose to take action, we take action despite feeling scared. If we choose to remain stuck in a state of inaction, that scared sensation hunkers down, it's amplified, intensifies, and suddenly this fear takes over, and it hijacks your decision-making and your action-taking. So what is fear? Fear is a survival instinct. It's an automatic reaction deeply embedded in your nervous system from ancient times. Again, you've heard me say some variation of this multiple times on the podcast, that many, many moons ago, fear was necessary to survive. If you heard a little rustling in the bushes, that fight or flight kicked in, mainly probably flight in case there was a saber-toothed tiger in the berry bush your ancestors were picking on. You ran, scared, fearful, get out of there to keep yourself and your family and your tribe alive. So again, it's a survival instinct. And for us here in modern times, fear often takes the form of beliefs or stories related to specific aspects of your life, specific events, or even specific individuals. And fear acts as a strategy to keep you safe, to keep you in your comfort zone. And what I want to plant the seed of, to kind of have you chewing on as you listen to the remainder of this conversation, is that fear is something we all have when we're born with. We're going to get into kind of the types of fears, the crux of fears in a moment. Because again, it's hardwired in our DNA. It's what has allowed our species to survive and thrive. There have been multiple moments in your life that have amplified, intensified the feelings of fear you experience, which makes it harder and harder down the road to take action in similar situations. Now, when I talk about there being multiple types of fear, again, we have to go back to our ancestors. Long ago, if you were kicked out of your tribe, if you were judged, abandoned, or rejected, you suddenly lost access to reliable shelter and food, and inevitably had an exponentially greater likelihood of death. So these three core fears, I call it the fear jar: fear of judgment, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. Those are the crux of what you and I experience every single day. They're the deepest layer, the deepest of depth of the fear you and I, discuss in dialogue. Very common in our vernacular is fear of failure, fear of success, fear of embarrassment. Maybe you've already identified you have a fear of love. You have a fear of commitment. You have a fear of acceptance, being wrong, fear of being exposed as an imposter, fear of speaking up. Underneath all of that are the three primal fears of being fearful of being judged, abandoned, or rejected. Because again, these three fears date back to tribal life where survival was contingent on belonging to a group. If you were judged, rejected, abandoned, your chances of survival dropped dramatically. And although you and I no longer really live in tribes, well, maybe if you got your boys, your foursome, your couple of groups of guys you go golfing with every Saturday, our biology is still designed to treat social threats as existential ones, which is why you have this fear of topping your driver on the first hole when you're finally playing in this new group that you've had to really earn your way into on Saturday mornings at the 7:08 tee time. It's really about much more than topping your drive. That fear feels disproportionately intense because it's not about the shot. It's about the deeper unconscious fear of being judged or rejected by this group for how you performed and inevitably abandoned because you're no longer welcome back. Do you experience a fear of chunking a chip in front of your playing partners? Yeah, there's fear of failure there, fear of embarrassment, fear of judgment. Do you fear blowing it in a member guest? Yeah, typically tied to fear of judgment, rejection, and abandonment. Do you fear raising your business prices or pursuing a bold goal? Yeah, again, frequently linked to all three: judgment, abandonment, and rejection, especially the fear of being perceived as maybe too much, too greedy, not enough, different. And that's the thing here. I want you to take a moment and latch onto the word different. When I think of the word different, and I'm going to really shape the context of this conversation, I think of being outstanding. You're listening to a personal development podcast. Yes, it's disguised under the guise of golf mindset. But golf is nothing more than a mirror of your personal development journey. And I want you to hear that again. Golf is but a mirror of your personal development journey. And again, you're spending your time with me trying to get better. You're looking for an edge, a word, a new perspective, a new lens through which you see yourself, the world, and what's possible. You're doing this to be outstanding. Well, let's break down outstanding: to stand out. When we stand out, when we have all eyes, attention, energy, the spotlight on us, that's scary. And you want to know why? Because suddenly there's an opportunity for judgment, for resentment, for envy, which poses a real threat to being kicked out of our tribe. And I'll give you a classic example. Maybe every Saturday morning you play with the same 4, 8, 12 guys, and They're there for a casual, I had a shit work week. I worked 50, 60 hours a week. I'm going to have a 6-pack finish by the turn. I'm here to zone out, hack the ball around, gamble a little money, and it's like $2 a hole. Big fucking deal. But what if you show up because you're incredibly dedicated to getting better? And maybe you're not the best player in the group yet, but suddenly you're not drinking anymore. You're asking John to get out of your line of sight on the tee box so you can really focus in on your pre-shot routine and execute to your ability. All of these micro changes are designed to get you to stand out, to be outstanding, to achieve your potential. But there's a real existential threat under the surface that manifests as fear. Because if you keep doing this, you stand out. You're different. Everyone else is there for a casual round to have a good time. And here you are taking it seriously. The competitor in you has showed up because you want to fucking play well. You want to win. They want to have fun. You want to win, even if you're only competing against yourself. And I give all the credit in the world to Ed Milet, which is who I heard this quote from. I believe it's originally from him. Winning is more fun than fun is fun. To win, you've got to stand out. You've got to be different. And that evokes an immense amount of fear. There's an indescribable cost, exponential cost to remaining stuck in a state of fear. And we go back to the Stoics. We go back to what I kicked off this conversation with, the difference between being scared and being fearful, being afraid. The way that I like to think about this, and I'm going to attempt to bring in some visual elements here, so turn on the imagination, the visual aspect of your mind. But the moment an experience occurs, there's this reaction of scaredness. The sensation of scare begins to move throughout your body. And it's really just the turning on of your nervous system, the fight or flight, the response of readiness, which is a physiological response we all have. Some of us view it as fear, some excitement, some nerves. But this experience occurs, the scared sensation is triggered. And it's almost like a ticking time bomb. You can picture this feeling state moving on a spectrum here. The longer you delay taking action, the stronger this scared sensation is growing. It's intensifying, it's amplifying. And there's an imaginary threshold. It's not actually imaginary. We just can't really, make it tangible, whether it's after 3 seconds or 3 minutes. Inevitably, you've remained stuck in a state of inaction so long that when you cross that threshold, there's like a logarithmic exponential rise in the likelihood of remaining stuck. That scared sensation has evolved into fear, and that fear is heavy. That fear is strong. It blinds you to the cost of inaction. It creates detrimental strategic tunnel vision, narrowing your focus on how bad the potential outcome of taking action could be, and you remain stuck. The voices of doubt, the voices of shame grow louder, grow more frequent in your head, and suddenly it's a living fucking nightmare of an internal experience. And that's how it typically works. Because candidly, when you feel scared, when you're scared, you care. Because again, scared is nothing more than a slight interpretation of your body's physical response for readiness. We've talked about this at great length before. I'll drop an edition of the More Pars Than Bogeys newsletter that further breaks down this response of readiness we all experience when stepping outside of our comfort zone. That shine, that readiness, that short-term temporary state of scaredness, it's normal. Take action anyway. The best of the best, the most successful individuals, they feel that exact same sensation. Yet, they don't let it keep them stuck. They take action anyway. And I need you to understand, they take action anyway. And I want to go back to the Stoics again, which it's a good quick reminder. If you're not familiar with Ryan Holiday, and his books, his writing, you need to be. Ryan Holiday is essentially, these are my words, but the modern day Stoic. He's the one who has ruthlessly studied Stoicism and brought it into the modern era. He has many, many books. I'm looking at a couple right now. Discipline is destiny. Courage is calling. Stillness is the key. The obstacle is the way. Ego is the enemy. All rooted in Stoicism. You need to read these books. You want another mental edge? Read Ryan Holiday. But it was Seneca who said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Fear is yet a spell cast by your subconscious to paint such a horrendous, bleak outcome that you remain stuck in a state of inaction. Why does your subconscious do that? Because again, your subconscious has one priority: to keep you safe. The way it keeps you safe is to keep you stuck in a bubble of predictability, familiarity, and comfortability. As you start attempting to step outside your comfort zone, further away from your comfort zone, even the thought of that triggers this immense visualization, your imagination running rampant of all the most horrendous outcomes that could possibly occur. And that's why you remain stuck. Because again, anything outside of your comfort zone is perceived as a threat. And anytime there's a perceived threat, your fear instinct is triggered and your body begins to initiate several changes to facilitate that fight, flight, or freeze response. But what's so captivating here is that this fear instinct can be triggered by both real and imagined threats. And these threats may be physical, they may be emotional, they may be psychological. So let's bring this back to the golf course now. Again, a lot of this undercurrent of hyperbolization of worst possible outcomes is beginning unconscious and then may or may not make its way up to conscious level. What I mean by that is, again, we go back to the tee box analogy. The first tee, maybe you're teeing off in front of more people than usual because there's a couple groups lined up behind you, or maybe it's a tournament and there's several spectators, dozens, more than 50 watching you tee off. The thought of hitting a poor shot, topping your drive, swinging and whiffing is so fucking terrifying because you'll be judged, feeling embarrassed like a failure by all of these strangers. And logically, when you're far removed from that situation, maybe you're talking about the situation, it's easy to laugh and think like, fuck it, like I don't even know these people. The chances of me seeing some of these people ever again in my life is slim to none. But there you are in that moment. Fear feels so visceral. It's like a symphony of emotion percolating every single cell in your body. It's all you can think about. You're tight, you're tense, and obviously you're going to hit a very poor shot in that situation if you can't let it go. But we think about too, there's an approach shot. The left side of the green is covered by bunkers. The right side has water. If you come up short, it's going to roll back. If you go long, you're going to be OB. So we think that we feel uncertain, we're uncommitted, we're unfocused, and all of those can be true. And we're fucking afraid of making a mistake because if we have to suffer a penalty or it's going to cost us a couple extra strokes to finally get on the green, what does that say about us? What does that say about our skill, the level of golfer we are? How's that going to reflect on our final score? The hesitation, the apprehension, the timidness you feel on an approach shot, trying to sink your second putt to avoid a 3-putt. These are all manifestations of fear. We feel them differently. There are many aspects of spider webs of feelings, belief, and stories, but they can all be traced back to being fearful of judgment, abandonment, and rejection. It's my hope that you're picking up what I'm putting down. Because this fear, this scared sensation is a triggered response. It's a survival instinct. Feeling scared is a survival instinct. Take action anyway. And rather than viewing fear as a cage, how about an additional perspective? When this sensation arises, remember that it signals one truth. You're standing at the edge of growth. Avoiding fear may feel safe, but it keeps you stagnant. Leaning into this scared sensation, on the other hand, it builds self-trust. It tells your nervous system that discomfort is survivable and that you are more capable than your fear wants you to believe. So whether it's standing over a pressure putt or preparing for a critical business decision, fear offers you a choice: shrink or expand. And I need you to understand this. Your job is not to work or think you can work to eliminate fear. Your job is to understand it, work to diffuse and reduce it, and to move forward anyway. Now, one of the most powerful, albeit still somewhat surface level exercises around diffusing the intensity of fear you experience that I've ever come across is from none other than Tim Ferriss. And this exercise is called fear setting. And I'm going to give you a condensed overview of this exercise. If you just Google Tim Ferriss fear setting, you'll get a video breakdown and the entire step-by-step process that Tim recommends. But essentially, this structured reflection helps you to clarify what you're actually afraid of and reframe the perceived consequences. So it's quite simple. First thing you're going to do is define the fear. Like, what's the worst case scenario you're envisioning? Then you're going to write all about preventing the fear. Like, what actions could you take to reduce the likelihood of this worst case scenario you're envisioning actually coming true? And then thirdly, you're going to repair the outcome. If the worst did actually happen, how would you recover? If you got last place in a tournament, I have an imagination you'd probably play again, or at least I'd fucking hope so. But how would you recover? What resources, what relationships, or what solutions would help you bounce back? Part 4, you're going to assess the actual consequences of inaction. What is the long-term cost and even the short-term cost of staying stuck, avoiding risk, playing small? And you're going to consider this across your performance, your relationships, your health, and your sense of purpose. And you're going to find, more often than not, that the cost of doing nothing far outweighs the discomfort of taking action. Now, as I shared earlier, we are all programmed to have this fear of judgment, abandonment, rejection. We are all programmed to experience a level of discomfort, timidness, uncertainty, second guessing, apprehension when it comes to beginning to stand on the edge of and aspire to step outside of our comfort zone. And many moments, particularly in childhood and early adolescence, have the opportunity, the potential to amplify, intensify the feelings of fear we experience anytime we attempt to step outside of our comfort zone. And this is where hypnotherapy proves to be an invaluable asset. Hypnotherapy offering an opportunity to uncover some of those pivotal moments in your younger years in which an experience was had. Maybe you bombed a presentation in 6th grade in front of your peers and your classmates. Maybe you shot a 112 in your inaugural high school golf tournament. Hypnotherapy offers an opportunity to go explore and uncover that moment, to see why that younger version of you learned to feel and fear a certain way. What stories and beliefs about stepping outside your comfort zone were formed, solidified, and ingrained during that pivotal moment. And hypnotherapy offers an opportunity to not only cover the origin of that sabotaging story or belief or that irrational fear, which all fear is, but it offers an opportunity to diffuse that fear, to take back control, to unlearn it, to release yourself from it, freeing you up with more energy than ever before that can now be put forth toward hitting that minimum amount of energy needed, that activation energy threshold to finally do what it is you already know you need to be doing to achieve your goal. And I'll be candid. whatever goal you're attempting to achieve right now. Fear is at some point along this journey, or maybe right here, right now, fear is your biggest obstacle. Fear is holding you back from doing what needs to be done. Fear is holding you back from doing what you know you need to do. Fear is holding you back from taking action at the pace it needs to be taken, and doing so consistently over and over, even when you don't feel like it. You get to the core fear. You understand why you are experiencing this fear. You do the necessary work to reduce the intensity of it. Suddenly, you feel an ease and a lightness and effortlessness, taking the action you know you need to take, and you're accelerating the timeline to achieving your goals. And if you're truly serious about becoming the next best version of you, let's have a conversation. Give yourself an opportunity to learn more about how mindset coaching and high-performance hypnotherapy can accelerate your results, empowering you to become the best version of you on and off the course. Let's begin to wrap up this conversation. We've gone far, far back, hanging out with the Stoics, who themselves experienced the shine of that scared sensation, yet understood that it was a temporary sensation. It's normal to feel scared. Yet, if you remain stuck there, allowing this scared sensation to evolve and intensify into a place of fear that keeps you stuck, this state of being rooted in paralysis, inaction, real or imaginary, well, to remain stuck in that state of fear is an absolute disgrace, according to the Stoics. And I'll agree with that. Yet I'm guilty of being fearful. I'm guilty of letting fear take over. And I've always found, and I share this with my clients and really myself all of the time, action alleviates anxiety. We can sub that with action alleviates fear. Action, action, action. Action is the name of the game. Action is the way forward. Action requires energy. Emotion is nothing more than energy in motion. If you want more energy, you need to work to diffuse and let go of the destructive emotions that you are harboring. The fear, yes, but also emotion in other areas such as anger, grief, sadness, regret that you're holding on to that isn't serving you in your journey forward. Continuing to do the deep work necessary to reduce and release that frees up the energy necessary to give you every opportunity to move quickly out of that scared sensation state and to take big, bold action toward your goals. Well, I thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. And if you're new to the show, thank you first and foremost for being here. Thank you for listening. Welcome. You've got, I think at this point, more than 80 episodes to go catch back up on. Each of them gets better and better. The guests are phenomenal. You get to join me every other week for a solo episode like this and a phenomenal guest in between. And I know you're going to find immense value if you keep listening. Thank you so much for listening. For my longtime listeners, my OGs, I appreciate you. It's crazy to think it's been more than a year since this podcast has been live, consistent, never skipping a beat every single week, some weeks twice per week for a stretch there. I want to let you know I've got another phenomenal guest coming at you next Thursday. And then after that, it's Q2 recap time of my very own golf journey, my specific goal of getting down to a 5 handicap by the end of this year. And I don't want to sell myself short. But if in a 4-day tournament, Saturday is considered moving day, and if there's 4 quarters to a year and we're in Q2, damn did Q2 feel like moving day, because we did some work, scores are dropping, a lot of great progress, updates, new changes implemented in the swing, in the game, in the approach, on and away from the course that I will dig into and provide a detailed discussion as Q2 wraps up and we begin the month of July. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so, hey, 30 seconds, a rating, a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this show. It's greatly appreciated. It means a lot. It helps me have the opportunity to continue bringing on phenomenal guests. Have a great rest of your day. Hit them straight this weekend, and I'll catch you in the next episode.